Tonight we're going to be talking about what is a quality knife. Welcome to G-Ball Vision. Hope you're having an awesome day today. We're going to have a topic discussion on what makes a quality knife. What is a quality knife? And I think a lot of people assume that there's a price tag associated with a quality knife. And I don't fault them for thinking that. That is the case with a lot of things. The more expensive, the better it is. But also, on the other hand, you also can have a high price for something that is just more rare, less produced, and it's not quite up to par with something that's even half its cost. So both sides of the coin are true. And both sides of that coin are true for folding knives or knives in general. Now, first, to define or discover what a quality knife is, we must know what the definition of quality is. And the definition of quality is the standard of something as measured against other things, or a distinctive attribute or characteristic possessed by that something. Now, when we talk about quality knives, I think price should all but be thrown out the window. Now, if something is of high price but doesn't have the quality, only the high price comes with the rarity of the object. So small batch knives, small makers, really low output of the knife is going to drive up price if there's some quality there based on materials and it being handmade or hand done. That does not level out against something that is of high production and of a relatively a lot lower cost. So if let's take, for instance, some of the best production knife companies in the game, whether we're talking about Hinderer, Strider, Spartan. You can insert a lot of companies. These are all great companies that do great fit and finish work. They use excellent materials, but they are not without their issues. Talk to guys who have owned Striders and the lock stick. Talk to owners of certain Spartans. And although these guys are great companies, great people, the knives still have their issues. Spartan, Harsey, I've heard and had some that have very bad lock. I don't know what you'd want to call it, lock rock, basically. McNeese and some of their quality control departments sending unsharpened knives out, knives that have horrible lock stick, a little bit of detent lash. And I'm not bashing any one company here. That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to bring this all together and tie this all into one. When we talk about a quality knife, now I have this off-grid out here just as kind of an example, right? This knife is 80, 90 bucks. Considerably a very low cost when we're talking about the folding knife world. When we have knives that go up to $1,000, $1,500, and then up from there. So in the grand scheme of things, this is a very affordable knife, coming in under $100. Now, does that make this knife have no quality of not being quality? I believe that this knife is one of the finest folding pocket knives that I have had in a very, very long time. And I'm not talking about it aesthetically. It doesn't have zircuti, Damascus. It doesn't have a super steel. It's not a titanium handle. So it's obviously not a material thing. It's not an aesthetic thing. Not that this isn't a great looking knife either, but there's no flashy Damascus or anything like that on this knife. We have a beautiful gray DLC tumble finish blade. We have G10 handles. Very nice fit and finish. We are still getting 154 cm on the blade steel, which is a fantastic steel, and Off-Grid does it very, very well. Now, this is a quality knife, whether you want to admit that or not. That is really irrelevant. This knife possesses all the qualities, all the characteristics in comparison to what a knife is supposed to be and supposed to do. This knife stacks up against all of that very, very well. Out of the box, it has a great edge. It has a great heat treat. It's a decent steel. We have nicely finished G10 handles, which are very tough and resilient. And a lot of knives use G10. This is, for all intents and purposes, almost a perfect knife as concerns the design. It is completely nailed. I've been over this thing with a fine-tooth comb. The only thing that this knife missed on was a filler tab on the show side, which they have corrected since they've done this model, i.e. the new Stinger. So they've already corrected that small thing, and at that price point, and being a user, that's not really something that's a big deal in the grand scheme of things. All the functional things of this knife have been done to a very high level, and even though these are considered way more high or mass produced than a lot of these small batch makers, this has absolutely no issues. There's no lock failure. There's no lock rock. There's no detent lash. There's no fit and finish issues. There's no unevenness to this knife. It came razor sharp. It has a beautiful edge on it. This knife is $90. This is a quality knife. You do not have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to get a quality knife. Now, we can even take this another step down. So call this $100. It's not quite that expensive. It's, I think, 80 to 90. Let's say it's 100. You can get a quality knife from Miguron for around 50 to 60 bucks in some very, very good materials. But let's not just hold our breath on great materials like the 14C, like the gray DLC coated blade here, like the nice micarta. We're talking about not the titanium pocket clip. We're talking about a functional knife that is quality. This is a $50 knife, and Miguron for the last year has been doing just this, putting out quality knives for a relatively very inexpensive price point for what you are getting here. On top of all the materials, I'm talking about the fit, the finish, the great edge, the proper tolerances and geometry within this crossbar lock, the lock bar strength, the spring within that lock bar, the finish of the micarta and the choice of the micarta. This is an excellent knife, guys. And for under 60 bucks, this is really hard to beat. You're getting a steel that is ultra tough in 14C. It's very corrosion resistant. Doesn't have the best edge retention in the world, but it maintains a good enough edge, and it's very easy to sharpen up or strop back up to get that nice sharp edge back on this guy. And Miguron has a plethora of different models that are great quality and fall underneath the $60 price point. So there is another example of being able to get quality at a very, very low price. And this video is not, it's directed towards everyone in the knife community or anyone that is in the market for a pocket knife or a fixed blade knife. It doesn't really matter because this same exact discussion can be had for fixed blades as well. You can get a lot of quality fixed blades for a relatively low cost. You don't have to spend $1,000 on a custom fixed blade to get a decent fixed blade. When you get to a certain price point, let's just say over $400 or $500, at that point you are not so much interested in the function of a knife. You're more buying the design, you're buying the maker. There's a reason you are spending that kind of money, and it's not going to be directly related to quality. It's going to be based off that designer, his work, his materials, his fit and finish, and how much you like that given design. For the new people that are coming into the knife community, and there's a ton of them every single day, some of them swing by here. You do not have to spend a ton of money to get a quality knife, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because it would simply be untrue. Now, there's nothing wrong with people having their preferences and not wanting to spend under $100 anymore to get a knife. They have moved past going below that price point, right? Which is completely understandable and fine. But that doesn't mean you still can't get a quality knife under that price point. Now, with all that being said, for the new people or for the people who just aren't sure, or even for people who've been around a long time, you don't have to spend a ton of money. You don't have to go broke buying a knife to fit in or to get a quality knife. That's just not the case. Now, don't get me wrong. Not only is there a bunch of gems, diamonds in the rough that come in under $100, but there's also some garbage as well. So that's something you kind of have to be careful of. But we live in the golden age of information, and there is not a shortage of content creators who make content based solely on doing such things as showing you what's good and showing you what's garbage. Now, of course, there is going to be bias included. As much as I would like to take any bias I have towards any one knife or company out of the equation, I can't completely do that. I try. And I typically am very, very open-minded when it comes to pocket knives or knives in general. I would say, not tooting my own horn or something like that, but I would say probably one of the most optimistic content creators that there is. I try to find the good and even a $25 knife, a $30 knife. And that is where I'm going to bring this guy into the equation. We have one of the top dogs in that $20 to $30, $20 to $40 range in Ganzo here. Firebird. Beautiful satin finish blade. They do their 440C and their D2 very well for what those steels are. Great deployment method with the thumb studs. Very comfortable, very simple. A nice crossbar lock with great tolerances, strong springs, and it has solid and positive lockup. G10, textured, reversible clip. This is a quality knife, and it's $25. So don't feel like you have to spend a ton of money to get a quality knife, because it's simply not true. And I just wanted to have this discussion because I feel like the further we get away from some things and the more bias and opinion that comes into things, certain creators and people that make videos on knives might not do a quality knife the justice that it actually deserves. Someone who really prefers, a creator who really prefers $200, $300, $500 folders may not, and most likely will not, find the best in some of these knives. It might not be. Now, can they admit that it's not their style, but it's still good? Yeah. I guarantee there's certain creators who would not buy this knife, would not carry this knife. And that's based on their preference, but it's also based on their use case as well. Or you could insert any off-grid here. The guys who, and there's different creators for a reason. I love being a design reviewer, but I also would like to be better at my performance review of the knife as well. And that's one thing I've tried to get better with over the last year or so, or as time has went on. I do love reviewing a design, but I also am very interested in the performance of that design within those materials. So to tie everything up from the start of the video to now, what makes a quality knife? Well, what makes a quality knife is having proper tolerances throughout, having proper fit and finish throughout, having everything be even and flush, having good edges out of the box, having solid lockup, being able to carry that knife easily, that knife being comfortable in hand to use that knife. Knives are cutting tools. They are tools first and foremost, and they require function to be good. You don't have to buy an expensive knife to get a quality knife, to get a functional knife. And that's where the community has kind of not necessarily been split or divided, but that's where mindsets start to differ. You have the people who are looking for a knife because they need a cutting tool, and then you have the people who are looking for a knife so they have some flashy pocket jewelry for pictures, something they can fiddle fart around with around the house. And I have no problem with either side. I fall on both sides. I want a functional user knife, and I also want a bougie ass knife that I can flip around my house. But I can also admit that, and I can still give as much of an unbiased opinion as I can, because I also like functional users as well. So do you see where I'm coming from with that? There are people who are content creators who fall on this side and don't view things on the user side. And vice versa. I'm sure there are content creators out there who fall solely on if the use is no good, then the knife is completely no good. Or if some of the function is not there, then it's not a good knife. Now, to get into examples and continue on with that whole thing and tie it all together, we'd be here another 20 minutes, which I'm not going to do, but the last point I'm trying to make is take all the content creators that you watch, especially if you are new or pretty new, Take everything that is said about any given knife with a grain of salt, and take anything you hear about a given knife with a grain of salt based on the performance of just that one sample. If I have a knife, if 20 people get sent the same exact design, the same model, everything, down to the color of the scales, and you see the very first person who puts that video out and it has lock failure, it is not safe to assume at that point that the rest of them have lock failure, or whatever the issue may be. A crappy edge, an uneven edge, something that's not finished properly, a little bit of lock rock, or a little bit of detent lash. It's not safe to assume all those things, and any creator worth his salt would not say that it's not worth his salt based off the one that they have in their hand. You have to have the ability to get a new knife or get a knife for the first time and it have issues, and you be able to say, well, it's probably, as of everything I know right now, it is probably just this one right here, or a very minuscule amount that are having this issue, right? Of course, there's always going to be errors within a large production batch, so that should be a given. So you don't have to spend a ton of money to get quality. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt in regards to a certain knife or a certain company. Listen to a couple of different opinions, different creators, and in this day and age, you can make a pretty good decision based off what you see and hear between a multitude of creators, and make a good decision on getting what you want, whether it's a functional knife or whether it's just a quality knife all the way around, or whether it's a fairly well-made bougie knife with all the flair. You'll be able to get the answers. Just do a little bit of research and a little bit of consumption of content, and you will get your answers. Let me know what you think down in the comments about this whole discussion. Do you agree with me on all this or most of this, or do you really disagree with me and think I'm a dumbass? Let me know down in the comments. Do you agree with me and still think I am a dumbass? Either way, hit the thumbs up button. That way you can help old G-Ball out just by the click of a button. And if you're not subscribed, with 2 clicks of the button, you can hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button down below the video. I'm going to throw up a couple new videos here, and here, and here. Go watch one of them, and I will catch you back on the next one.